Welcome back to the Growth in Reverse podcast. For the first time ever, I actually got to interview someone that I did a deep dive on about 6 months ago. I wrote a deep dive on Eddie Schlaner, and we actually were able to bring him on and ask him some more questions about what I got right, what I got wrong, and how he kind of thinks about his work and everything. So that was super cool.
Some people probably don't know that when they read your deep dives that you haven't actually interviewed any of these people that you're doing the deep dives on.
Correct. Yeah. In the beginning, it kind of started out as like they didn't really know who I was, so they probably wouldn't have been like giving me the time of day to actually do all this research on them. But after a while, I started realizing that people actually forget what happened. Like even talking to Eddie, some of the things I shared, he was like, I totally forgot that I even did that. So thanks for reminding me. And you can kind of hear it if you go back, like the number of interview podcasts that I listened to of like them being interviewed by other people, their answers change over time. It's super fascinating.
That is really cool. And that doesn't surprise me. I think there's these bias to, we have these kind of almost like issues with our memories and how they falter over time. And there's a whole bunch of studies I'm sure that have been done about it. But yeah, it's cool that you've kind of seen that play out while doing these deep dives with people. Chenell, since you did this deep dive, like, first of all, I want to know, what was it like actually interviewing somebody who you've written a deep dive on?
It was very cool. Eddie's such like a chill guy. And he was just like, this was really insane to like read all of that. He's like, I feel like you know more about me than I know about myself, which feels very strange. But no, it's cool because so as I'm listening to all of these podcast interviews that they're doing, I feel like I'm getting to know them, but I've actually never met these people before. So it's kind of weird. I'm sure it's very strange for someone I've written a deep dive on to be like, wow, this person spent like 40 hours listening to research about my life. And yeah, that's got to be weird, but I guess it is what it is.
With doing that though, I think that makes for that much more of an interesting interview too, because we've got like kind of the lowdown on everything they've done. And with Eddie, he's been doing this for like 10 years, right? Very good copy. Sort of kind of originated about 10 years ago in 2014. But I really liked his story, how basically he got hired as a copywriter for a company and he was not a copywriter, knew nothing about copywriting. So he basically had to like teach himself on the fly. And that was like the inception of very good copy.
100%. Yeah. So he just started kind of saving all of these lessons that he was learning into a Google Doc. And then someone at a job he was working at saw him writing this and they're like, what are you writing, a book? And he's like, no, I have this whole like Google Doc of these things I'm learning. And they're like, dude, you got to publish these online. And he was like, what? And then he did. And that's essentially where Very Good Copy was born.
Yeah. And then now like 70,000 subscribers plus, he's got a pretty robust business that he monetizes a number of different ways, which we'll get to in the interview. So, yeah, there's some really interesting points in this interview that Eddie shares that we talk about that you share in the deep dive that you highlight. But I think I love how he goes a little bit deeper and adds a lot more context too, as well, to some of the stuff he was doing and why he was doing it. And yeah, definitely. And there's one thing actually that you called out that you totally missed when you were doing the deep dive, that Eddie talks about a little bit more as well.
Yeah, 100%. That was really fascinating.
I'm Eddie. I run a newsletter and a blog called Very Good Copy. And there I write these micro lessons that are about copywriting and creativity, creative theory, how to think creatively, how to write copy. And I've been doing that for 10 years or so. But in this deep dive, Chenell, that you wrote about it, which I really appreciate. Thank you for doing that. I was telling you earlier, I was really stunned to see it and just see actually how in depth it was. It was pretty cool. Because I'd forgotten a few things that you'd mentioned in there, so it was neat. But yeah, in there you'd mentioned something about like the intentionality behind the newsletter the growth of the newsletter starting around 2018. So I think that's a salient point, is that like I started 10 years ago, but I really didn't start growing it until I joined a company called G2.com, and I had amazing colleagues there, very supportive, very smart people who were on the growth side of things, and they encouraged me to start marketing it in earnest in 2018. So for a while there, I was just kind of doing it for myself. I was just kind of teaching myself copywriting, teaching myself how to think creatively by writing these little lessons. If I would listen to a podcast, read a book, watch a seminar, whatever, If I came into something that was interesting to me and something that helped me do my job better, I would challenge myself to write about it, so that, if because I figured if I could do that, if I could teach it to other people, then I knew it well enough. So I was just doing it for myself, straight up. And then, when I got hired at this place, and people saw this, this kind of backlog of articles that I had produced, they said, you should start marketing this. So that's really when it started in 2018 or so.
Nice. Let me actually share my screen. I want to jump into this growth timeline because I think that's interesting. It's a good point to bring up.
This is unreal, dude. This whole, when I saw this, I was like, this is so much effort. So I appreciate this. I appreciate this a lot.
You got it. So I actually started it in October 2017, but I think you started writing these micro lessons in like 2014. You started publishing them?
Well, not really publishing, no. I mean, maybe
Okay.
I did. I don't know. You tell me what the Wayback Machine said. But I really don't remember what the milestones were when I started putting stuff up. I just remember I started doing it solely for myself. Whereas like a lot of folks now, they have like this, they reverse engineer like a growth goal. They'll say, oh, I want 100,000 subscribers on
Right.
such and such platform. I want 50,000, subscribers on my newsletter, and they'll reverse engineer how to get there. And I started with the opposite intention. I really didn't want an audience. I didn't think I wanted one. That wasn't the goal. I just wanted to do, be better at this job that I had gotten, that I knew nothing about. So, yeah.
If I remember correctly, you started like really earnestly publishing them pretty consistently. Like maybe not every week, but it was pretty close around 2017. And then once you left your day job, so for people who can't see the timeline, it's like pretty flat until right around the time you left your day job in 2020, and it just takes off. I just thought that was awesome. Do you think that's because you were so intentional with it at that point, or did you see something and that was the impetus for leaving your day job?
I left after, I think in March, right around when COVID happened, I started posting on LinkedIn. And
Okay.
and that was really just a practical thing. I had more time in the mornings. I didn't have to commute, and I just had time to devote to not just writing them, but also marketing them. I think marketing is a huge part of all this, and I just didn't have the time for it before. But when COVID hit, I decided to do that. And then by the end of that year, by the end of 2020, around November, I realized that, I was getting opportunities that I couldn't really turn down, but I also couldn't really take if I had a full-time job. So I just left. Yeah, that was kind of a risk, but probably one of my better risks, as far as like work goes.
Yeah. Seems like it. So at the time, were you just doing like consulting and stuff when you left? Like writing for other...
I was copywriting. I didn't really start consulting until a few years later. And I guess the difference is just like consulting is I get on a phone call and or on a Zoom call and I tell you what to do, or I tell you what, I give you my take. And then copywriting is harder because I'm actually writing it for you. So I think I was just doing copywriting at the time.
We saw the growth timeline. We talked a little bit about revenue. I know there's more to it, but we can dig into it in a bit. But I kind of wanted to jump in. So I think with the first growth lever that I pulled out was your HubSpot posting. Like you were just writing on HubSpot. I think, 2016, it looks like. And you said that you had written a post and people couldn't figure out how to sign up for a newsletter that I don't think you had at the time.
Right.
So they emailed you and said like, how can I sign up for your newsletter?
Right. Yep. Basically.
Yeah.
Basically. Yeah. There was a lot of people that came over from a post and did not have any way to like stay in touch. I think so they emailed asking about it, and that's when I got MailChimp. And the thing on MailChimp was like, it's free until 2,000 subscribers, and I was like, great, I'm never paying for this. You know what I mean? Because 2,000 subscribers seemed so just unattainable to me. It just seemed so crazy, but I think it's testament to how fast things can grow online. When you have this worldwide audience at your disposal. It's crazy.
How did that feel, like having people read your work on HubSpot.com and then be like, I want to sign up for your newsletter?
I was just motivated. I think, it was just motivating,
Okay.
and I appreciated that people took the time to write. I think back, I think about myself, and how how rarely I write to people that even people that are inspiring me and that I admire. I just either feel like they're not gonna see it and it's just gonna be in a void somewhere, or like, I don't want to bother them, or I don't want to take the time. So I just felt I was just motivated by the fact that people actually took the time to do it, and appreciative, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to.
But I was curious how you, like some of the people listening will probably wonder, like, whoa, HubSpot, you're writing for HubSpot? Like, how did that happen? How did that come about? And yeah, if any learnings from that, aside from obviously, maybe having a newsletter sign up page before you start sending people to your newsletter or to your website.
Yeah, I think it started when I went to Inbound one year, and
Conference.
I went to the HubSpot Inbound conference, and I watched a presentation, and one of the editors was, either she was moderating a panel or she was just like assigned to that room, and I recognized her, and I came up to her, and I was just like, hey, can I submit something? And she was like, I remember she was like, yeah, absolutely, you can get in touch and send something. It's got to be long form. I think they were doing a lot of like 1,500 to 2,000 word articles. And so I think I got somebody's email address that way and just sent them, just the best article that I could. I spent a long time on it, and I just really tried to do a good job. And they published it just because it was, I guess I really tried to do a good job, So that's a takeaway. If you want to get published somewhere, I don't know if it's probably less about who and just like how much effort you put into that piece. They just want good stuff.
And you publish more than one post with them, correct?
Yeah, I think it tallied up. I mean, eventually I had a column, and so there's probably 20 or so posts up there.
Nice.
And I don't know how it really works. I think some of them get cycled out and then cycled back in depending on the year, or they get updated, or I'm not really sure how the editorial process over there goes. But I love all those people. I love HubSpot. When I think about HubSpot, I think about like the beginning of all this. I think about the opportunities that they gave me. I think about how nice they were to me as well, how encouraging and how motivating they were. It's testament to like how important it is to be supportive of young creative people, I think, because I don't know if I was a very good writer back then, or I think I just was kind of like white knuckling the whole process and trying to do my best, and it wasn't like, it's never easy, but it really wasn't easy back then, like just wrestling with all the ideas and the turn of phrases and everything. It was really kind of agonizing, but they were super supportive and sent back very few edits, and just encouraged me that way. So I look back on my time working with HubSpot editors very fondly.
It's so fascinating that it started just by like going up to someone at a conference and being like, hey, can I submit an article?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like so many people make it out to be like this huge process, and you were just like, no, I'm just going to ask this
Oh
person.
yeah. It was super off the cuff, and I think you just gotta go for stuff like that, and you never know, if they don't take it, maybe somebody else will. As long as you do it for, I think you do it for yourself. Just don't try to reverse engineer anything. Don't try to reverse engineer like the biggest publication or the place where you're gonna get the most reach. Like, I think if you just lead with like your own desire to create something valuable for people, or create something that engages you. If you're like, oh, I really like this. This makes me vibrate in a way. Like, this is compelling for me. If you endeavor to do something like that, create something like that every time you write, then I think that's the most important thing. everything else will kind of fall into place.
Yeah, agree. All right, so moving on to this next one was just build your well. And I know you have this, I think it's like a massive Google folder. Do you still do this process of having the well and all your ideas in there?
It's in Notion now, but which is much easier. But yeah, I mean, this is just a technique that helps me retain, I guess, ideas, and because sometimes I'll be like at the top of my stairs and have an idea, and then I'll get a text, and then I'll like respond to it as I'm walking down the stairs, and at the bottom of the stairs I forgot the idea at the top, and I'm like, oh man, what was that? So like, I'm just conscious of this, of like how fleeting these thoughts are, and how fleeting these connections can be, and so I try to make it a habit to write everything down and keep it in one place, so that if I ever needed inspiration, or if I ever wanted to go pluck something to write about, it's right there for me.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I've been using Notion a lot more recently too. It's been something that's hard to transition from Google Docs, but it's definitely a better tool.
You were
I think.
You were a Google Docs user before that?
Yeah, and Apple Notes and all of the things. I just have stuff scattered everywhere. But
Right.
Try all of them.
yeah,
Right.
I was just gonna say, your idea of the well is, and like recording that idea, I resonate like very much with that, because I go for runs once in a while, and when I'm on a run, sometimes these ideas kind of bubble up, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll make a note of that when I get home. And of course, you get home and you're like, totally forget you even had the idea to begin with, and so I just got out the habit of like, if I have an idea, I get out my phone, take a voice recording of it, and that's kind of like my audio well, I guess, so to speak, and that's helped me publish blog posts and articles and stuff like that too. So I think I resonate a lot with that, and I think it's really smart, and a lot of people probably take for granted their memory or think that their memory is better than it is.
Well, yeah, I mean, for sure. I think we forget our lives as quickly as we live them. Mm-hmm. Why not set yourself up for success when you really have something in the pocket? And also, it's not like it's not a bad thing. It's a lifestyle change. It's not a bad thing necessarily to like be pulling out your phone all the time and recording things. But sometimes it does get in the middle, in the way of what you're doing, like if you're at dinner, or if you're like trying to fall asleep, or if you're on a run or something like that. So it is like a lifestyle change, and it's something that you have to get adjust to. And so I think that's why a lot of people don't do it, because they're like, well, I'm not gonna do this 20 times a day. I'm not gonna like change my routine and like change the way I am in front of people so often. So it is like a sacrifice in a way, and so I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but it can be. So you just got to navigate that. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know. That's been my experience. Like nobody likes somebody pulling out their phone in the middle of a conversation and making a note.
Right.
Or like. And personally, we probably don't like, on like being on the cusp of falling asleep and then pulling out your phone and like having to, look at blue light and record something. So it's just one of those things where it's not like the easiest thing to do all the time. So it is a skill set to kind of cultivate.
but it does make your life easier when
in the long run
you actually want to go ahead and write something.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's a habit thing too, right? Like just getting in the habit of like when an idea comes to mind, recording it somehow, not being rude to people you're with maybe, but just like, sorry, 1 sec. I just had a really great idea. Something you said, whatever. I need to record this.
Yes.
Please don't hate me.
Right. Right.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. All right. So I guess for the third one that I found was growth loops. And you're like really big into LinkedIn. You said you started it around 2020 because you had more time in the morning to write. But one thing I did pull out was like the growth loops that you were essentially sharing an article in your email. And then at the bottom, you'd say, head over to LinkedIn, comment here. And then on LinkedIn, you're sharing or sending people back to the website. Mm-hmm. So it's just this nice little circle that you had going on. Mm-hmm. Do you think that really helped with your LinkedIn growth in the early days?
Yes, I do. I think those are a big part of it. Because, you were essentially you were amplifying every post and exposing it to so many more people. And then, yeah, driving those new folks back to my website. And then, the website is basically built for, it was designed to get people into the newsletter. So out of all the CTAs on there, probably 95% of them are asking people to join the newsletter. And then so every time you send it and, execute the growth loop, the next time around, the next newsletter, you have more subscribers to help amplify your posts. And I do think there's diminishing returns with that. And, over time, it became less and less necessary. And so I might kind of be weaning off of that strategy. But certainly when I first started, given the landscape of LinkedIn at the time and everything, it was a fruitful thing.
Your website is definitely built for conversion. The social proof on there is kind of insane. You have like endless testimonials.
In a bad way.
Sometimes
in a bad way.
I'm wondering, like, so for just the testimonials on the newsletter, are you like reaching out to people specifically, or is there like an automated, like after they've been on your email list for 2 months, you ask them for a testimonial or something, or you just get those inbound?
In the very beginning, the first year that I was sending out the newsletter, that was like the focus of the newsletter, was to collect testimonials. So
Okay.
I think there was a link in there that said, leave a review, get a backlink. And that was kind of my offer to folks, because I would say, hey, I'll link back to your LinkedIn or your website if you leave a testimonial about the blog. And so, well, it definitely worked for subscribers. Definitely worked for subscribers. And then if I, anybody else on the homepage, like this quote unquote like featured like testimonials, and those are folks that I've worked with in the past that maybe have garnered audiences of their own, or they just have a presence in the industry, and so I just ask them very directly. Sometimes more than once, probably. Gotta ask. You gotta ask like for them.
How much do you think those testimonials have played a part in your growth and in growing the newsletter and getting clients too?
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's hard to quantify it, but I think they've certainly done a lot for me. I mean, it's just this instant credibility, that people see, and then I'm sure most subscribers will read something that I've written before subscribing to the newsletter, but with this kind of testimonial wall, so to speak, it's almost not necessary if you don't want to. You just know that they're, there's this abundant credibility associated with the newsletter, I guess. So it's kind of like going to Amazon, and seeing a product that has hundreds of 5-star reviews.
Right.
It's just this kind of like length implies strength heuristic at work. And so I give it a lot of credit. I think.
Nice. I noticed you had a bunch in the beginning of the book too. You have like 4 pages of testimonials.
Yes.
I love it.
Yep.
It's so good. I'm like, yep, here he goes again.
Yeah. It's probably what a lot of people are saying. I don't know how to feel about it anymore.
Well, it definitely stands out, so I think it's a good thing.
We haven't even gotten to the book yet, so we'll have to touch on that too before we end here.
I know. Eddie credits a lot of his subscriber growth to having tons of testimonials on his landing pages. It's hard enough to get people to your website. You kind of want all of those people that you can to actually convert and subscribe. Eddie did this manually at first by messaging people, offering a backlink, but you can actually use a tool like Senja to make this easy, and people can just use the form, submit their testimonial with their image, a video if they want to, and you're all good to go. Senja makes this easy to display them on your website and in your emails as well. You can get started for free over at growthinreverse.com/Senja. That's growthinreverse.com/SENJA. And now back to our conversation with Eddie. One of the things that really stood out to me was this take sabbaticals thing. And I'm so curious because there are so many creators who like go through burnout and they're just like on the content hamster wheel and, writing week after week. And I saw that you took sabbaticals like a couple months off every year. And I was like, this guy's brilliant. Like, no one has the balls to just like sit there and be like, I'm going to take the next 2 months off and that's it. Good luck.
Yeah. I mean, I just, I need to focus. I need to focus on a project to really get the best out of myself and get the best results, I think. And that's super hard to do when you're, trying to manage marketing on social media and trying to manage writing a new newsletter every week or a couple times a week even. So, if I have a big project that I know is going to, pay off in the end, then I'll definitely take a couple months just to, it's not like a sabbatical is kind of, it's misleading because it conjures images of like being on a beach with the corona. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just not marketing, and I'm just not present, I think, online as much. And so if I create a course, I take 3 months off and I work on that course, and then I launch it. And then, because that's another thing, is it's like if you make a product, you don't just got to make the product, you got to create the launch plan as well and actually launch it. So it's a lot of work. Same with the book. The book was a real labor, and probably took me longer than 3 months. So it wasn't like I wasn't around for the 6 or 7 months that I was making it, but it was definitely a slower time for me online. But I think, a lot of people, they can't imagine themselves doing it because they see social media or their presence on social media as like this proxy for their success. But really it's a false proxy, especially with everything that's, all the pods and everything, all the ways to manipulate your presence there on LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever. It's a false proxy for how you're doing. I think the real proxy is, how are people engaging with your newsletter, and then how are your sales? How are you selling things? So it's just a matter of kind of like training your brain to realize what's actually important, what's actually moving the needle for you and your business versus the perception. And sometimes perception is important, especially in the beginning. Like you have to, like I said, there has to be that initial like credibility when people see you. But after a certain point, you reach a threshold, and you're like, okay, well, what am I going to do? Am I just going to kill myself for another year to achieve this kind of growth when I've already, built a newsletter, built a business? Shouldn't I be focusing on that? I don't know. That's kind of how I feel.
And when you take these breaks to focus on projects, are you setting any automations up? Are you still publishing the newsletter? Or does that all just kind of like, no, I'm done, none of that keeps going? How does that work?
I will be now. I wasn't for a long time. I never had any automations. I was at MailChimp for 10 years. I never had any automations set up. I never had any, everything that was happening I was doing. And
okay.
So, I'm kind of kicking myself now because I probably could have gotten a lot more done, and I probably could have been maybe not more productive, but more I could have balanced like growth and craft at the same time better. But actually, I asked Chenell if Kit was a good place to go, and she had some good feedback about that. So I went to Kit, and they have the most amazing platform for automations and sequences and all those growth levers. So I will be doing more automated marketing, I think, moving forward, but hopefully still keeping it, I hesitate to say authentic, but like hopefully still keeping it that way, giving it that feeling, because I think that's a lot of what people appreciated, at least from the feedback that I got about my newsletter.
Yeah, I don't think automations make it any less authentic as long as you're doing the same quality of work and it's still you. It's not like somebody else publishing it or anything like that. So would you like repurpose content while you were taking these sabbaticals, or like rerun something you wrote 3 years ago or whatnot?
Yes.
Yeah.
All the time.
Okay.
All the time. I mean, Seinfeld is in syndication. I'm not Seinfeld, but great content is always being syndicated, and so I've always felt like, hey, if I produce something that I'm really proud of, that has moved a lot of people in the past, why not syndicate it and put it out there more often? Because only a fraction of my audience sees every post.
Exactly.
I mean, if I have 100,000 people on LinkedIn, or 100, whatever it is, like
119.
119,000 people on LinkedIn. I think maybe 10% of my total audience sees every post. So that to me is just kind of like a no-brainer.
Yeah, I think there's a pressure on a lot of creators, newsletter publishers, etc., to like always be writing something new, coming up with new content. But if you have this backlog of content you've already created, why beat yourself up and stress out about putting out a new hit every week when you already have something in the greatest hits catalog, right?
Right. I think it's just a matter of like some people conflate like creating with marketing. Like just be like you can't create something every day or even every week sometimes. It takes a long time, I think, depending on what it is, but creating something, you just have to be so thoughtful and intentional, and to do it really well, it takes time and effort, and there's just has to be sometimes a buffer between the things that you make. But when you're marketing, I mean, that's how I see the syndicated content thing. It's just, I'm just marketing the brand. I'm just marketing the newsletter, trying to get more people in it so that I can show them the new things that I create. So I think there's like this, people conflate the two, and again, that's not it's just, they're not the same thing. So, don't do that, because you are going to burn yourself out that way. If every time you share something, you got to make something, that's crazy.
I think it's a good message. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, agreed. As someone who writes deep dives like this and feels bad when I can't put one out, thank you.
Every week.
You are seen, Chenell.
Appreciate it. I actually realized 2 days ago or yesterday that I missed something in this deep dive. You launched on Product Hunt I guess it was pretty early on. I totally missed this, and I was like, wow. Okay.
I missed it too. I didn't know. I didn't notice that wasn't included. I mean, literally everything else was. So don't beat yourself up.
No, I think it's interesting. I'm curious, like, was that a good use of your time? Because I know Product Hunt launches can take up quite a bit of headspace and marketing and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I thought it was. I actually recorded my entire process and put it into like what I called like a micro course, or basically like a long article. It was very similar to like a deep dive kind of structure that you have, Chenell, and I made it available for folks to. It was like a lead magnet for anybody that subscribed, but then I was getting so much positive feedback about it that I packaged it up, and I started selling it, but now I don't even know where I'm selling it anymore.
I think it was on Gumroad, because I found it afterwards.
Gumroad.
Yeah.
So I don't market it at all. I don't really think about it that much, but every now and then like a sale pops up, and I'm like, oh, cool. I'll just.
It's so interesting.
It was a good use of time because it taught me something new. It taught me how to launch something on Product Hunt, and again, it was just another credibility lever that I could pull, whenever I needed to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just looks like so much effort. And I saw you said you got 906 subscribers from it. That's a lot, but was it worth, like, I feel like those things take like 80 hours to like put together.
Oh,
Is
yeah,
that
I'm
off
sure.
base?
I'm sure it was a lot of it. I don't remember exactly how much time, but the 906 subscribers is great. But really, I think like my takeaways were just like, okay, how do I think about very good copy? How do I package very good copy up for an audience of net new people and explain it to them? I think that was really the benefit of it for me, because it forced me to think about my product and brand, um, probably in a way that I really hadn't before. And just the clarity that it gave me was really refreshing, I think.
Okay. I like that take on
Me
it.
too.
Because usually you just look at like the numbers and you're like, oh, that's cool. But I could see how that would almost be a forcing function for you to kind of, you know,
Mm-hmm.
put together the
Mm-hmm.
words for what your brand is and what people can
Mm-hmm.
expect.
Exactly the word
Yeah,
I'm
it's
going to
like
use. Yeah.
yeah, it's the Rory Sutherland kind of take on AI, where he's like, yeah, like AI can, it can write your ads for you, but the real value in creating an ad is the process that you go through to create that ad. How you think about the product, how you think about the market, how you think about the offer, you know, all of that will help you ultimately create the right message, and it's really hard to, if not impossible, to like prompt an AI to do that for you off the cuff. Like you need to go through the hard, difficult, slow work of thinking about what you're selling in order to really to create the best message for it. Yeah, that's what happened to me here with the product launch. Yeah. Plus, yeah, and so yeah, and all the subscribers and having it pop up when you Google it and stuff like that. I think that's all a very good byproduct. Um, but yeah, the A1 was like, okay, what am I selling here, and how does it inform like how I market going forward?
I'm curious about VGC Plus because I heard you bring this up in so many podcasts, and I'm like, where did this
Dude, how
thing
many
go? What happened
how
to
many of
it?
my podcasts have you listened? I get so my okay, go. Let's keep going. Sorry, let's proceed.
No, it's okay.
I'm because I know that this deep dive took a lot of research, but like now I'm like super self conscious of how much how much research you've done. But go on.
No, I was just curious, like you, I don't know, in the one episode you were like super excited about it, and then I like didn't hear about it again. And I was like, wait, where did this thing
Oh, dude.
go? And then I looked and I don't know. There's not much evidence of it on the
Right.
internet.
Well, because it was just that's what we were talking about. That was like a burnout trap, because I really did have to create something new every single week, and something like demonstrably better. I felt like for that community than what I was putting out on in the newsletter and on LinkedIn, because it was paid. So like I had to come up with something fresh every week, sometimes multiple times a week. I think I said I would like put out a new post every 2 or 3 days.
Wow.
So I like totally over delivered on what I'm capable of doing. You know what I mean?
Or any
Well,
human.
I mean,
Yep.
it was, the thing is, it was just me, and I was at the same time I was running, the consulting business and the copywriting business and marketing on LinkedIn and Twitter, and writing a newsletter, and now I take on this kind of new paid community, and with that also comes all of the interactions inside of that paid community, answering all of those comments. Like, you don't want to leave people hanging. So it was so much, and I felt so much pressure every few days to make something new and make something great, and so it was really tough. It was burning me out, and I just kind of I think you used a certain term, sunset it. I sunset it. I
Yeah.
sunset it big time. And maybe I'll come back, and maybe when the time is right and I have the infrastructure for it, like I'll do something like that again. But it was the wrong time. It wasn't the right time to do it. We just had our first baby, There was so
Oh,
much.
wow.
There was so much going on. I was like,
Wow.
How long did you have it running for?
maybe a year,
Okay.
maybe a little less,
Wow.
something like that. Not like not a negligible amount of time, like enough for me to like have a have a total nervous breakdown. Like I can't do this anymore. We're stopping this.
Oh no.
No, it wasn't a nervous breakdown, but it was tough. But it was a timing thing. You know what I mean, Chenell? It was a timing thing, and I just didn't have all my ducks in a row. And I launched it right when I left G2.
Okay.
And
Okay.
yeah, I think in hindsight, a course would have been a much better product to focus on.
Did you feel maybe a little bit like, hey, I left my corporate job and now I feel this pressure to like earn revenue, make it a reliable income, and I've got to do like a paid private community and keep my consulting business going and the newsletter and everything like that? Was that maybe part of the reason? Yeah.
Hell yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You got to make a living. I got to make a living. So that was just like the first thing that I jumped on, and but a course would have been better because it probably would have been as much, if not less, effort. But with a course, you make it once, and then the effort is in marketing it over and over again. And
you've got free micro courses too, which are like in and of themselves like super valuable, that are just lead magnets. So I'm really curious to for you to share a little bit about sort of what is driving revenue for you.
Well, yeah, so I can give you like the percentage breakdown, but
yeah, we don't need numbers.
Right, but to be clear, I think it's the percentages are estimates and very rough ones at that, because like they're all kind of levers that I can pull in a way. Like if basically I make money with products, right? So the course and the book, and then sponsorships of the newsletter, and then copywriting and consulting. And if I market or advertise one more than the other, that becomes kind of the driving source of revenue. But I would say, yeah, historically it's products like the course and the book are probably 40% of my revenue, and then sponsorships are 30%, and then client work, consulting is another 30%.
Okay.
But ultimately I'd like to keep on productizing the business and the brand, and I'd like it for products and sponsorships to bring in more and more money, and maybe pare down the client work. I don't think I'll ever stop taking on clients, because it's keeps you fresh. It's great experience. Like it keeps you thinking like a copywriter and a marketer. So I think it's extremely valuable to write copy for other brands besides your own. I just enjoy the process of making products and marketing those products and selling them. So I think I'll keep on going down that path.
Are you doing this all by yourself?
I am. The creative part.
Wow.
I am. I'm not doing the back end business administration by myself. I have a finance manager that handles that for me, because I'm not talented at all at that. So that part of the business is taken care of, but the creative work is all me at the moment.
What about like sponsorship outreach and stuff like that, or is it mostly all inbound?
It's mostly inbound. I have an ad in the newsletter.
Okay.
To make that even easier, and to make that also better for sponsors, I'm going to encourage kind of like more long-term sponsorships. So instead of having one per newsletter, I'll have one per quarter. One sponsor per quarter, and that's ultimately gonna yield a better result for everybody. Because if you go to a radio station and you ask to buy one ad, they won't sell you one ad. They'll sell you 7 ads or 15 ads. They want that recurring message, because the more people hear it, the more likely it is they'll act on it. So same concept.
I think a lot of people kind of talk down on traditional media, and like magazines, print is all dead, but they definitely did some things right, for sure. And I think advertising is one huge lesson that people in our space, the creative, the digital creative, can take away. Is like, yeah, you'd never buy rarely would you just buy like one newspaper insert ad, or one magazine insert ad, or one television ad even. It's usually sold in bundles and packages, and if you do happen to buy the one-off ad, it's probably not going to perform very well. Like you need that repetition, right?
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. So hopefully I can pull that off. I'm just saying I have in the past, and it's been great. So because it's less work on my end. It's less work to kind of like update the newsletter every time, and to like have those conversations about what the offer is and where is this ad going. What does the landing page look like? Because I want everybody that advertises to be successful. So I do help with writing the ads and making sure that the congruence between the ad and the landing page is there. Like I am involved in that. It'd be great to just have one big project per quarter instead of 12 little ones.
Well, I think the recurring nature of it is easier just for everybody, right? Like the advertiser is going to see better returns, and you don't have to stress out about finding a new advertiser every week or every few weeks or month even. So it makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
So as for what's working right now, I'm curious. This book is awesome, by the way. I was very surprised because usually when people will just take newsletters and throw them into a book, I'm like a little hesitant because I'm like, is that really going to be like a good thing? But it like flows really, really nicely. You did a very good job with this.
Chenell, I appreciate it very much. It was one of the things that made the process so long is like going back and editing everything that I've written to not only kind of one voice it, but to make sure that if the order that I put it in would flow, if you wanted to read it front to back. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, it's great. Are you seeing subscribers from it? I know you have like a QR code in the front and all that stuff. Have you been able to like track that you're getting subscribers, or you see a uptick or anything?
I haven't tracked the QR code like a Momo. So I don't know how many people are coming in from the book. That's a good point. I'll have to talk to my Kit account manager about that. But I get anecdotally I get emails from people saying that, hey, they were looking on Amazon for copywriting books and saw mine, and then they went and subscribed, and then they bought the course. And so you could see anecdotally again like the kind of the path that people take. And I think that's why I focused on marketing and launching the book for so long, and kind of took a hit on maybe some of the sponsorship revenue that I could have had from earlier in the year, because I was just promoting the book and promoting the wait list and making sure that people were on it, so that I could more or less ensure that there was that the launch was good, and that it would become kind of a fixture in like with the copywriting keyword on Amazon, so that people can find it organically. So
that's gotta feel cool that people are just like finding your newsletter via a book on Amazon.
That's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, that was the idea. That was the idea. So I'm glad it's working out.
I'm really curious what you learned from going from this digital space to publishing a physical copy of something. Like, do you have any like key learnings that you took away from the experience, or maybe something like you were totally surprised by that you didn't expect?
Well, I didn't expect how hard it was going to be. Honestly, I thought that it was going to be, I took my best of and put them together, and that was going to be the book. But really, it was extremely arduous and kind of a form of torture at some point, because it was like I had to go. I had to, a lot of some of the book is from I wrote it 5, 6, 7 years ago, and I had to go back, and my writing style has changed since then, and I've changed since then, and so I had to go back and one voice everything. So that was the hardest part by far, is going back and editing everything, and again making sure that it flowed in the order that I wanted it to, and that just took so much longer than I thought it would. And I was really, in hindsight, really naive to think that I was just going to throw this thing together. But then also coming up with the concept for the book, the original title was going to be Becoming a Copywriter, believe it or not. And like the cover was going to be totally, totally different. It wasn't going to reflect the branding at all of Very Good Copy. And I worked with a really talented cover designer, Zoe Norvell, and she was just so nice to me, because I was my going back and forth with her was I'm sure I don't know if she's experienced anything like that before, because literally she changed. She got me the cover and I loved it, and then I sent it around to some of my mentors and some folks that I should have tapped a lot sooner, and they were like, Eddie, like, this is the wrong way to go, probably. You know what I mean? Like, this doesn't speak to current subscribers. It doesn't speak to anybody that doesn't know you yet. Like, this is just going to be floating in a void, you know? And so then I just put the cover together myself in like 20 minutes, believe it or not. After like weeks and weeks of work, I just scratched it and I just put the cover together, and I was like, hey, can you just make this all align, and this is going to be the cover. So yeah, huge learning there.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And was it self-published?
It was, yeah. It was self-published. So, and that was another thing, is just coordinating that process was a job in and of itself. And just everything took longer. Everything took longer than I thought it would, man. I'm like getting PTSD right now thinking about it. It's like triggering me. No.
So we don't have to ask you if you would do it again anytime soon.
I would. No, I absolutely would. And I want to. I want to continue like putting out volumes, but yeah. I just know so much now, and so much more than when I started. So it's all about, you know, organizing it the way that the way that it needs to be organized from the get-go, and that saves so much time, and just being intentional as as I'm putting out new content about, okay, where's this going to go and how's this going to fit in the next book.
That's awesome. So after, I mean, now that you've written this book, it's out in the world, published, what's next? Like, how are you going to continue this brand, your growth, all that stuff? Or you going to take 2 months off first? Or
no, I think I already did that. After the book. But I think it's just going to keep on going. You know, I'm on a new platform now, like I said. So I'm playing around with all of the features there, and creating sequences and creating automations that I think would be delightful for people. So I'm working on that, but also just making a real conscious effort to be productive in this latter part of the year and going into 2025, because I wasn't really that productive as far as like net new work in the beginning of 2024. So I'm just going to keep on sending out newsletters and doing my best to improve each issue. And I really do think that's enough. You know, as long as you kind of focus on putting out your best work and putting quality first, everything will kind of fall into place.
Nice. And like you said, just write stuff that you're interested in. Other people will find it and likely be interested as well.
Yeah. Well, so I think write stuff that moves you. Like, you have to have an audience, a specific type of person. Or I'm writing about copywriting, I'm writing about creativity. I have to stay in that space. I think the important part is write something that moves you, compels you, makes you feel good, something that you're interested in, something that doesn't bore you as you read it back. That's a good barometer of the quality of your work.
Wow, the way he approaches stuff is just so refreshing. What do you think, Dylan?
Yeah, his whole vibe is just mellow, super approachable. I love that he takes like months off at a time to focus on work and get away from algorithms and stuff like that. And I think more of us could probably benefit from that kind of thing.
Yeah, as we head into the holidays and the busy season with family and stuff, maybe it's a good reminder to allow ourselves to take some time away and actually enjoy life.
There are worlds outside of algorithms and internet.
If you want to follow along with Eddie's stuff, you can find him over on LinkedIn or Twitter, or head over to verygoodcopy.com and subscribe to his newsletter. It's great. Or if books are your thing, you can check out the Very Good Copy book wherever you get your books. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all of the good places. We'll see you next time.